Hi everyone, thank you for joining us. We are here from beautiful Nairobi, Kenya at the 6th United Nations Environment Assembly at the United Nations offices in Nairobi. But today I'm here with Alexandra Bushinzizi from Soka Gakkai International, Deborah Boudreau from the Buddhist Tzu Chi Foundation, and Alan Otaro from the Catholic Youth Network for Environmental Sustainability and Environment, how it's being developed and how faith actors can help to implement this right. So first I'll do a little bit of background on what the human right means and where we are now. So civil society has been advocating for this right for well over a decade, and the Human Rights Council formally recognized the right in October of 2021, with the campaign being led by Costa Rica, Morocco, Maldives, Slovenia, and Switzerland. At the same time, the UN established a special rapporteur on human rights and climate change. And then the United Nations General Assembly voted on the recognition of the right in June of 2022, with over 100 co-sponsors and 161 votes in favor. So really just overwhelming support. So this resolution recognizes the impact of climate change, the unsustainable management and use of natural resources, the pollution of air, land, and water, the unsound management of chemicals and waste, and the resulting biodiversity loss and decline in services provided by the ecosystem interfere with the enjoyment of a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. And it recognizes that while the human right implications of environmental damage are felt by individuals and communities around the world, the consequences are felt most acutely by women and girls and those segments of the population that are already in vulnerable situations, including Indigenous peoples, children, older persons, and people with disabilities. It also recognizes the importance of gender equality, gender responsive actions addressing climate change and environmental degradation, the empowerment, leadership, and decision making, and full, equal, and meaningful participation of women and girls, and the role that women play as leaders, managers, and defenders of the natural environment. And then finally, it reaffirms that states have the obligation to respect, protect, and promote human rights, including in all actions undertaken to address environmental challenges and to take measures to protect the human rights of all as recognized in different international instruments, and that additional measures should be taken for those that are particularly rights in the environment. However, this resolution is not legally binding. It's only the first step towards cementing this right in international law and in the constitutions of states. So I'll turn first to Alex and ask, what has happened since this right was first recognized in June of 2022, and how is it being discussed here today?
Thank you, Emily. Hi, everyone. So, maybe to add on to the right, as said, it's not like there is no like a multilaterally agreed definition. But usually we say that there is like substantive components and procedural components, and the substantive components are really about like the right to a safe climate, clean air, the healthy ecosystems and the biodiversity, safe and sufficient water, to be able to have healthy food and sustainable food, and to live in a non-toxic environment. So that would be really substance, right? And then you also have procedural rights. So you have the right to access to information, the right to participate, the public participation, and the access to justice. And these are important because even if there is no process of defining the right, there is really steps that are happening in relation to these components in various processes. So since June 2022, to go back to this breakthrough recognition at the universal level of the right to a healthy environment, we have had a lot of policy efforts to push this right, now that it was recognized by the General Assembly, into other processes. So it was recognized in the global biodiversity framework that was adopted at COP15, and then it was recognized in the text of COP27, in the COP decision. It was also then recognized in the new general comment from the Committee of the Rights of the Child that was issued earlier last year, and it's been really pushed in various processes to be in coherence with this breakthrough adoption at the UN General Assembly. And now at CYNESA, we hope, but for now it is in the ministerial declaration that it will already be continued to be reaffirmed in these high level processes. Now, for maybe UNEA itself, there is nothing like specifically on the right to a healthy environment, but there are several resolutions that are discussing elements of components, as I mentioned them before. And we have a resolution on air quality, we have a resolution on water policies, on ocean and sea governance, on various aspects of mining and minerals, and all these aspects actually relate to the right to a healthy environment. Maybe what we can see is that sometimes probably it there is so much noise in the background, so we are going to speak even closer, and I hope you can hear us like that. And we apologize for this. But so basically, to conclude, what we are really hoping here at UNEA is to um, that this step and in the next steps, so when I'm talking about the next steps, we are looking really at the next biodiversity conference, the next climate conference, the next combating desertification conference at the international level, that these processes can really keep moving the right forward. Now, of course, what's really important is that this right actually was recognized at the universal level, but because it's already present in many constitutions of many countries. So other steps are really for the national implementation of the right, and to really keep working at the national level for safe air, for access to information, public participation, access to justice, um, air quality, safe water, safe foods. And so these efforts need to continue in parallel of continuing to raise awareness at the international level. So I think I'm going to stop here and I give it back to you.
Thank you, Alex. So now I'll turn to Deborah and Alan to talk about how faith-based actors were involved in getting this right recognized, and all that's happened in the almost 2 years since it was recognized. So Deborah, would you like to go first and talk about the role of faith?
Alan.
Alan, go first. Okay.
Gender.
Okay.
Balance.
You may have to speak a little bit closer.
All right. Thank you very much, and thanks for inviting me to this conversation around the right to a healthy environment. And thanks to Alex for really setting the background to help us put in the frame of what we are having a conversation today about. It seems to me, particularly when you outline both the substantive but also the procedural components, that these are also inherently included in faith traditions, the values that faith traditions carry with them. If you think, for example, about the principle of the common good, that all these elements that we're talking about, that everybody has a right to, are things that are provided to us by the Creator, and therefore no one person, individual, entity, institution has a right to, enjoy these rights over others, or to limit the enjoyment of those rights for others. And I think, therefore, that for faith institutions, for faith, people of faith, this is something that probably is simply about the difference in the language, in how it is put in the setup of multilateralism in institutions such as the UN. If you go to the language of faith communities, you'll find that the idea, the philosophy underlying that is really the same. But for me, most fundamentally also is about how then do we achieve these rights. And you pointed out that in most constitutions around the world, these things are already enshrined. And I know that in Kenya, for instance, there's one court ruling that sort of said that these rights should be enjoyed by everyone, but the circumstances are such that they should be progressively realized. That it's not possible to wake up one morning and say, "Hey, everyone will have water in their houses." That should be what should happen, but the reality on the ground is such that that is not the case. But what other actors are doing to make, therefore, this possible? And if you go to many communities, particularly vulnerable communities, marginalized communities in the north parts of Kenya, for example, you'll find that it is faith actors who are really in the communities helping to provide, access to water, for example, safe drinkable water. It is, eh, faith communities that have social centers, that have health facilities, for example, to treat people or to provide preventive health care. in the event that people are not breathing clean air or have eaten food that is not, I feel that the faith community brings a very, you know, strong component of both the underlying values, but also the practical aspects of making these rights possible for everybody, particularly for those who are most vulnerable. Think about, protecting children, and those who are most vulnerable to air pollution, for example, and so on. So my takeaway is that number one, faith communities really are present with the marginalized communities who, for many reasons, find themselves not able to enjoy these rights. Secondly, they have the language that underlies the philosophy that then we see in these multilateral environments about the right to a healthy environment and the different processes, whether it's called diversity, UNEA, or the Climate Convention. And finally, we need as faith communities then to work more closely together so that we can bring the voices of those in those communities to speak directly to the policymakers, so that as they pursue or as they look towards making these rights enjoyed by everybody, that in fact those who most need it's enjoyed.
Thank you. Yeah, Deborah.
Thank you to Alan. Really highlight a lot of key topics area. And as a matter of fact, from the Buddhist perspective, it has been a long process. It's a historical, and it has been under a lot of review. So there's very strong interconnected in between all life. So within the interconnected with all life, from everyone, we also talk about interdependence. So that too integrate into together. So the cultural perspective of the healthy environment as an interfaith and then the climate perspective is really compassion in action. Where's your compassion? And also, when we reflect what's happening around the community, this year the topic is talking about triple planetary crisis. So we are talking about climate urgency, talk about biodiversity loss, we talk about pollution and waste. But faith is the core center right there. It's been for quite some time. Alan mentioned about in Kenya, different regional, different locations. And as a matter of fact, I saw so many church around the corner. And church and temple are the key to bring the community together. So the perspective really come to faith leaders to understand what's happening about union and what's happened about current resolutions. And the current resolutions, as a faith-based organization representative, we should remind them, maybe when they set up the resolutions, integrate the faith engagement and participation. So when the resolution has been put into a consensus, that really executors will be the faith leaders, the grassroots engagement around the community. So, so it is very critical and important for us to be here to participate and to share what we have been doing for so many years.
Thank you, Deborah and Alan. I really appreciated what you both said about how faith actors are really the implementers of this right and the ones that are carrying this out at the grassroots level. So I'll ask all three of you, uh, how is your organization as a faith-based organization currently involved in work on the environment and work on the right to a healthy environment, just so we can have some more concrete examples of how faith actors on the ground in your own experiences are helping us to implement this. So I'll start with Alex, and we can go this way.
Thank you very much. So maybe I think like as Debra was mentioning, as a Buddhist organization, I think there is a lot of focus on each individual to be able to do this self transformation, so that we can feel the interconnectedness with others, and based on that, really transform our families and communities. And so I would say that the treasure are all these individuals around the world who are really transforming their communities. And so there is a lot of experience sharing, story sharing to inspire each other, about how we transform our families, our communities, and then it will be like really across all the SDGs. Be interested in food. Some people will be interested. So it will all centers. There again in each country is most relevant for them. But I know that, for instance, in Argentina, they in Argentina bought land for the cultural center, and it was a barren land. There was really like it was degraded, really degraded land. I think in the outskirts of Buenos Aires, I think, and so they decided to create a botanical garden, and so they replanted. They had, of course, as the basin, and one of the beautiful, no, a bit more than a few years ago, but I think the beautiful space for. But the great news was that actually they had endangered species of butterfly. I think I come back. Yeah, in various areas, in many centers, of course, energy is used, and then changing renewable energy, really looking into waste, or also sometimes at the national level, there will be really policy engagement to move forward. In the UK, for instance, some times ago, there were really campaigns also around environmental education, working with schools. And so, yes, I think there will be like a broad range of activities in that sense.
It's a very interesting topic. Okay. 2019, Buddhist Tzu Chi Foundation would become UNEP members. So I remember 2019 when we time, we still try to promote plastic um, materials recycling. And Tzu Chi has been engaged for plastic recycling circular economy for close to 30 some years. But this time I saw the change. I saw UNEP from policy, from advocacy, and also the presentation. It's really leading to circular economy. And this time, the one of the resolution also talk about circular economy. That's mean science and data really means something. And then the plastic AI toolkit is another beauty to remind everyone. So for Buddha Tzu Chi, it's been for more than 58 years. How to turn the rubbish into resources. This conversation this morning has been discussed. But in our slogan, 30 some years ago, our founder, Dhamma Master Zen Yen, say, turn the trash into gold. Gold. Make the resources, turn the rubbish into resources. That resources become a circular economy. And today at this union's event, we saw a threat to change. We saw a gentleman wear a plastic suit walking around. That's really means a lot. Before, as a faith-based organization, we encourage volunteers to pick it up the plastic bottles and turn the plastic plastic bottles into clothing, into garment, into all the daily life so-called material stuff. But what I see today, this concept note implement into action, and this action has been become educational materials. So I have to say, Dharma Master Zeng Yan, her wisdom and her concept of turn the rubbish into resources has been implemented, and so many different agencies and UN family, everyone focus in this area to develop a common educational materials, like Alan mentioned about. We have to use to engage them. And the other thing I saw this time for Buddhist Tzu Chi Foundation, Dhamma Master Zeng Yan's, her serving with compassion, relief with joy, that kind of compassion in action and faith-based innovation. Innovation. The innovation is really started from your daily life. And in Nairobi, I saw the people, the community, really as a Western world, we dumping a lot of fashion into this community. They recycle. They rid of interaction and movement for Buddha's perspective. Dhamma Master Zeng Yan teaching us through the Buddha's engagement, we have personal transformation. So through the transformation, we try to ease our anxiety and also your stress. Okay. And then through there, we use social engagement. Now the social media is so powerful. You can Google everything. You can see YouTube, TikTok. Okay, so social engagement also bring another area for people for participation. The other thing is we all have different opinions. So when we facing the confrontation, Buddhists are very humble. We don't argue, we don't fight, we don't kill. So it's very humble approach, but we encourage dialogue and conversations. So from there, Buddhists, we do meditation. So mindfulness in healthcare is also another core value that we see it's been changing through Tzu Chi Buddha's this kind of practice. And finally, education is such an important component at this moment. So we try to create more educational materials and invite more young generation to participate and to inspire them, to give them a space to think about what would be the best way for creativity. You have triple planetary crisis right now. How you going to build it up your own future? And this own future is in your hands. And how you going to face the challenges and create your own future. So for serving with compassion, relief with joy, that's what Tzu Chi Buddhism, that Dhamma Master Zeng Yan, we would like to turn the rubbish into resources. And here has also a very important message. You talk about eco garden. We talk about plant-based diet. In South, um, we coexist with Mother Earth. We respect all the form of human beings and all form of lives. So we work with the animal, so we don't kill them. We respect them, and we share the space with the animal. So plant-based diet is another area that we are very focused in this peaceful environment.
Well, thank you so much, Deborah. Your discussion of plastics made me think of two things. So here at the UN office at Nairobi, this is the first UN campus that has banned single-use plastics, and they've encouraged everyone here to bring their own water bottle. So I think that is a really big step in setting that standard across all of the UN campuses. And then Also, I think we've seen a lot of discussion from certain member states and regional groups of a commitment to working to create a plastics treaty. I think that's something that it's starting to become on the agenda and it's starting to be a lot more mainstream. So I think hopefully in the next couple of conferences we'll see some really good progress towards that. So I think that's a really big change we've seen. Yeah. Alex?
Sure, and just picking up on what you said about plastics, the last negotiating committee meeting of the plastic treaty, the third meeting was held right here in Nairobi, and so what we're looking at, for example, from our perspective as young people working with young people in our organization, one of the things we've tried to champion and advocate for is also within events, church meetings, and so on, and institutions, to remove, the use of plastic water bottles for the environmental impact that it causes, number one, but also from the perspective of social justice, that there are people whose conditions, social conditions, cannot enable them to afford what does that say if we as people of faith will be having hundreds of plastic water bottles in our events, and leave just leave those bottles out in the open. So it's one of my colleagues, David, has actually came up with a hashtag for this campaign called "Unbottle My Event." So don't bring bottled water to events. As you said, bring your own water bottle, or have one point, common point where people can go to get water. And it always makes for a fascinating conversation, because then people say, oh, but what about places where the water itself is not available or it's not clean and safe? And for us, that means that then that opens a chance for conversation about what is it that makes the water in that place not safe, and can we address that issue, rather than coming up with Deborah also talked about the education component, which also for us is very important, because it helps us to link the policy aspect, like what is happening here to there, the discussions around the different planetary crisis, but also the grassroots actions and solutions, and linking these three things, because sometimes I get the impression that there are people who are really good at the grassroots work and they're doing fantastic things at the grassroots level in communities, but they often do not have practical solutions of what has worked, what doesn't work, and what we need to enable them to have a greater impact at scale where they are. And then the people who are really good at the education component at universities and other educational centers, but sometimes they are missing at these spaces so that they can inform what is happening here from research, from other things that they have seen, be possible, but also the loop, feedback loop, so that at the educational level they are also able to say that at UNEA, 193 countries came together to work on this, but also stakeholders, major groups, people of faith were there. This is the perspective that they brought in terms of solving the issues that we are having. So at the CYNESA Catholic Youth Network for Environmental Sustainability in Africa, we have deliberately gone out to work with young people so that we give them this education, which we call formation, so that the information they get in their minds transforms their hearts, their values, their way of engaging with each other, but also with all of creation, and helping them to come to these spaces so that they can engage directly with policymakers. They can have the chance for intergenerational dialogue, speaking to their elders, those younger than them, and forging a sense of unity, of united common purpose towards resolving the environmental challenges that we face. I liked what you said about turning rubbish into gold. We have like a pilot thing that we've been working on in the last couple of years, and some youth organizations around Nairobi also have such projects called Trash is Cash. So they're like taking plastic or bottles and transforming them into other items that can then be used, upcycling and so on. So we did something with bottles a couple of years ago. We were collecting used whiskey, beer bottles, and so on. so on, and turning them into candle holders, for example, and so on. And also, which addresses another element of the right to work, the right to earn a living. So you can see also how this right to a healthy environment connects and enables the achievement of other important rights that we look forward to as the values that we people of faith bring to these conversations that as in terms of the silos, so that these UN agencies working on environmental issues, but then you've got the ILO hormone connection to see how the achievement of one element that we are working towards enables the other one, and therefore the need for us to come and work together. And I think this is one thing that the people from the faith communities can perhaps in terms of dialogue with the governments and other stakeholders, help them to realize that we are one humanity, and therefore we need to work more collaboratively together rather than compete with each other and so on. And I think that was beautifully brought out in terms of the Buddhist approach to harmony and to avoiding conflict and so on. I think we could achieve much more as humanity if we embraced some of these values that the faith communities bring forth. And that's what we have been trying to do with young people in Africa, helping them also to appreciate the beauty of the nature, because one aspect that sometimes we talk about is the complementarity of rights and responsibilities. So that when we say that there's a right to a healthy environment, uh, as young people, what then is our responsibility towards helping the realization of those rights? And therefore, public activities like doing street cleanups, it works in both ways, so that the street will be clean at the end of that activity. But you have spoken to the conscience of the community around that area. Is that why did these guys show up on a Saturday morning to clean the street, and I'm the one responsible for, partly responsible for making it dirty. So the person's conscious about what are my own responsibilities, how can I contribute towards the solution, it triggered in that person's mind. So I think it's also really important that people of faith can contribute to, and therefore also faith leaders being able to speak about these issues from their pulpits, from the churches, mosques, from temples and so on is really key in forming conscience and in forming people's values.
Oh, thank you, Alan. I really like what you said about how this right doesn't stand alone and it intersects with other rights. At the Parliament, we work on a database with some partners with the United Religions Initiative, with the Oprah on Religion and Ecology, and with the UNEP Space for Earth program, where we're trying to track the faith-based actions on the environmental SDGs. And what we see is there's no project that supports, oh, we're working on SDG 13. It's always 3 or 4 or more SDGs that are all coming together, because you can't put them in silos. They're so interconnected. So I think that's a good perspective that we can bring, is taking a more holistic approach to how human rights and how sustainable development happens in the real world on the ground level. And I think that's something that UMEA can help us achieve. It's all these people from different UN agencies that are coming together, and hopefully we can have those kinds of conversations that are more intersectional in that way. The next question I like to ask is, what challenges do you think we're facing with the right to a healthy environment and its implementation? And what would be your call to action for other faith-based actors and groups and helping to get this right implemented in all of the local and national governments around the world, and helping this right be realized in a bunch of different communities? I'll go this way again.
Thank you. So I think in terms of challenges, I think there is a real challenge in the respect for the right, for human rights in general. And we see it's actually, it is not easy. Let's say at the UNEA or at the Climate COP or at the Biodiversity COP, we did have some really successes, but like it is not easy to actually also see these issues in terms of their implications on human rights. Yet, if we do put people at the center, of course, linked to also like from faith, what we are really bringing as in standing up in our own city. Somehow there is a fear around committing to human rights because it brings accountability. Um, for me, I still see it as a challenge because actually yourself, it's not that we're even like asking anything that they have not agreed to. They have agreed to many years ago as fundamental human rights, right? But it's sometimes it feels as if we have to beg, which we should not. It should be really much more like recognizing that this is actually the way to create something that will be working for the environment, for people. So I think that breaking through for the narrative is a challenge, I think. Then, of course, then I would say the second one is really concrete implementation. As Alan, I think you also said, no, that there is just a big disparity in the regions of the world and within the countries. And so I think we need to couple it with like equity, with really what do we mean by development, um, so that this discussion of the right to healthy environment can really bring something better for everyone and does not lead to yet other um, issues or misuse. No, I don't think the framework can let itself, but like human beings, we always find way to misuse. So, like to bring in really the principle of equity, the principle of solidarity, the principle, the right to development. So I think like really the challenges would be to really maybe go back to the spirit of the Rio conventions, the Rio declaration that was for the environment and development, and maybe rethinking what do we mean by development. And for faith, like it actually really aligns also with all the values that we describe, so that so that we can really move forward. I would say at this point that's what I see.
What I see so far is the faith-based organization. We need to be engaged. We need to be seen. It's been for quite some time that COP28 for it's a very successful model of the study is a faith abated. But 2019, we also have a faith space for presentation, for dialogue. But this year we don't see it. So why? Because after COVID and faith, we are not advocate enough to inform that UN family faith basis here. And even though the faith base playing a very vital role, but we need to be seen. We need to be heard. The other thing, what I see in the so-called academic environment for faith-based organization is grassroots. Grassroots only know how to do it. Like recently, Tzu Chi has a new program. There's a lot of recycling medical device. Wheelchair may be broken for one piece, but people just throw it away. But now, beside plastic bottle, we collect the medical device back. So training the volunteer to do repair and refurbish. And after you do that, um, there's so many vulnerable population around remote area, they cannot afford it. And they cannot find a commode or wheelchair or anything can help them to become mobility stronger. But Tzu Chi volunteers started to do this kind of eco-friendly medical assisted medical device delivery. But they've been doing this one such a successful, but nobody knows. And this one really tied into WHO, their healthy environment, healthy community, and healthy mobility, that kind of concept. But how to mapping a line in between faith-based organizations already implement the program and the government agency. Even this time, I keep share with the plastic AI tool. All the information they are collected are really for academic research purpose. They did not have a space for faith-based grassroots to tell them we collect how many plastic bottles, we collected how many plastic bags. This one equal to what kind of carbon. So that kind of tool implementation and how to that the database be aware. There's a tool. You can quantify, you have a qualified data to reflect. You are part of the scientific analysis group. Your movement, your data is so important. That kind of communication venue, how to build it up. It's so critical. So that's the huge challenges. We are knocking the door, we are asking for space on the table to the UN family, say, hey, we are here. But we need to tell them we are here with certain data. We are here with certain achievement. You need to come to us, ask us, what is your information? How can we translate? So when we talk about circular economy, we need to translate those information. We need to provide those information for them to pay attention to our efforts. So the challenges come back to communication and education, and also equity. Equity for how to engage. So we talk about this healthy equity environment. Um, the perspective really interconnected in between us and interdependence with the Mother Earth, but the whole things have to be integrate into a system, and the system transfer the data talk, and money works. So your trash is really a cash. I like that one. Trash is a cash. It's another terminology for circular economy.
Thank you, Deborah. That's amazing. Alan?
Yeah, sure. I'll just kind of highlight two challenges that I see, particularly in the global south. The first one is a weak institutional framework to ensure that these rights that are already enshrined are actually implemented. So, to give an example, in terms of air quality, for example, you need to have a fully functioning department that monitors the quality of the air to determine that a certain area has poor air quality, and therefore we need to make certain interventions to ensure that we improve the air quality. So if you lack the mechanism and the tools to do that, then you really are not able to have a baseline from which then you can say that this community has poor air quality, and therefore we need to do something about it. And where the community itself, takes initiative to do that and to come up with this information, then they find that on the side of the people entrusted to enforce or ensure that these rights are enjoyed by everyone. On the other side, in mostly government agencies and institutions, because if you have one element that is, causing a problem, let's say an industry that is polluting, then they need to be made accountable for that. And often you find that the institutional mechanism is such that, those people are not able to be brought to account, and therefore the problem is perpetuated. And you can extrapolate this also at the international level. I mean, if you're looking at, for example, the climate issue and the fact that the global north for a long time has not faced up with responsibilities, for example, to provide financing or to provide technological transfer and so on, to enable the global south to achieve development, but on a pathway that is more sustainable on the long term. So that as you do that, then you are able to guarantee these rights. And so you often have this sort of clash in quotes, because it really shouldn't be, where countries in the global south say, well, we should have the right to development and get everybody to a certain level of human dignity in terms of quality of life, and therefore we should not really be constrained in terms of fossil fuels or extractive industry and so on. And this is a false narrative, because we have the science and we have the historical background of what has gone wrong before, so that we can choose new pathways to bring everybody on board. And so when that link is missing, then people are not really able to sit around the table and agree on what do we do about ensuring that everybody has certain level of right to a healthy environment. The second issue that I see is a lack of investment in terms of ensuring that we can bring everybody on board. And I think one organization did like a satellite mapping of the city of Nairobi, and you could see that rich neighborhoods are right next to very poor neighborhoods. And somebody did more research and found out that people in the poor neighborhoods were paying a lot more for water than those in the rich neighborhoods. But if you looked at what people in the rich neighborhoods do with their water, they're watering their lawns, washing their cars. It's a lot of wastage also in terms of that. So the poor communities, they lack the investment. The authorities are not investing so that you bring a level of equality in terms of both access but also affordability of this common shared resource, and to ensure that those who are resting it are also have some level of accountability. And so this lack of investments makes the social justice situation even worse. And so for me, if we're able to tackle these two other salient challenges that are underneath these achieving the right to a healthy environment, and as you said earlier, the interconnectedness of all these different rights as well.
Well, thank you to all three of you. So we have about a little under 15 minutes left. So I wanted to ask you one final question to end on a positive note. What is one thing you've seen this week that brings you hope for the future of the environment? If you can think of one, hopefully you can think of one.
Oh yes, of course. I mean, I think the power of civil society coming together is definitely giving me hope. And also, I mean, I was in a meeting at some point where they talked about the next biodiversity COP coming, and the theme will be peace with nature. But the way that the minister expressed it was that we understand that we really need to have a shift in value, a shift in the narrative, a shift so that we see making peace with nature as really the answer to sustainable behavior, sustainable development. That gave me hope because I was like, wow, at the political level, to be able to talk about the need for a shift in value, it's inspiring. We've come a long way, really, to really realize that. So that gave me hope. And what gives me joy is to be able to work with so many different people for something really in common. And I would say even beyond society, when you can have also moments where you can actually even share in spirit that need for change in values, and you will fight for that in some resolutions very concretely. But even with member states, when it's really inspiring, it's like you go back to, okay, as humanity, if we can reconnect to this heart that we want really something good for others, and that really is fantastic. So for me, this session, actually, there were a lot of great connection and a lot of inspiration from the work of so many organizations, and so a lot of feeling humbled and I would say really privileged to be able to see the work of so many people and to be able to join in these joint efforts.
I really enjoyed. I saw so many people put their efforts in. A lot of 24/7 efforts. The door is open right now, and it's every one of us right on this table. What kind of chair you're going to sit? What kind of information you're going to share? So I saw the hope with the conversation and dialogue. And this empowerment is by yourself. And the other thing I see the joyfulness is 2019, when I come over here, I try to find a vegetarian food. It's not so easy. But today I come over here, I pinpoint a rice and vegetable. Immediately the server say vegetarian. So what does that telling you? It's changing. So we need to continue. The hope is there. Continue to push, continue to share, and continue to have our conversation and dialogue. So um, to me and to Tzu Chi, it's been so many years as a faith base. Um, we want to be part of the system and we want to be part of the space. I'm so grateful that Faith for Earth, Dr. Aya mentioned about 2019, only 4 faith representatives. Today has 87 faith-based organizations engaged. Does that telling you something? So faith-based organizations slowly show our support to each other. And then that's the dialogue, confrontation, communication. It's available for us. And we need to be assertive and proactive.
Yeah, for me, what has given me a sense of hope is observing the work that the youth constituency, children and youth constituency here at UNEA has done. So I think the weekend before the open-ended committee of permanent representatives, they had the youth environment assembly. 2 days full of, I think, 17 different sessions and working groups and so on. So I saw the hope, not just in terms of the fact these were young people, but also the seriousness, the commitment, and the dedication that they put into the work of coming up with a youth resolution and a youth statement to UNEA 6. That was really amazing to see, young people from all different parts of the world, working together seamlessly, engaging with each other, and putting the difficult questions on the table, but also coming up with very high ambitious asks and also commitments that they're putting forward to governments and other stakeholders in addressing the triple planetary crisis. So that was really amazing to see, and I felt that this really could teach these member states particularly what it really means to achieve multilateralism at this level. That we are faced with so many different challenges in the world right now, but that if we can at some point just be able to come together and work on the ecological issue together, then it will be the foundation to resolving many of the other issues that we see. And the fact that young people were at the center of that, the Youth Environment Assembly, and putting forward their input into the open-ended committee of parent representatives and this 6 week, that was fantastic. And I think it's only going to grow. So I can't wait to see the next, what they do next. But they're also really advocates on the ground in the grassroots community, but also on the streets. I mean, if you think of the Fridays for Future movement and many other movements that young people have around the world, both in urban but rural setups, young people of faith as well. I mean, this is really important to see and exciting also. So that really gives me a sense of hope and something to look forward to, something that really gets me out of bed in the morning to say, hey, let's work to support and engage and encourage these young people to move forward.
Yeah, I would say my answer is really similar. It's the number of young faces that are getting seats at the table. And of course, there should be more, but it's such an important step in the right direction. They announced the other night they're relaunching the Young Champions for Earth. Yeah, for another 5 years with funding. So I think at the table. So I think there's still a lot of progress to be made there, but seeing the progress that has already been made is going to be. Well, thank you to the three of you. For being here today. And thank you to our audience for sticking with us through any internet and volume issues. We're recording from outside, so we have the beautiful background. So it gives us a couple of technical problems, but it's worth it. We just thank you again to everyone for being here.
Thank you.